Here's how I felt the weeks before I fired my co-founder. I was on edge. I couldn't sleep, and I hated going into the office because of the black cloud that lingered over it because of the fight I was in with my co-founder. Then after I fired my co-founder, I felt like there was a black cloud that had been lifted from me and my company. Everybody felt better. I felt better. My team felt better. And my investors, I think, were relieved that I had taken action because my co-founder's bad behavior was no longer impacting the company. In my experience, at least 50% of all co-founder relationships end up in failure. In my particular case, 2 of the 4 co-founders I started my company with didn't make it beyond 1 year. The other 2 made it the whole way. So it's somewhat likely that you're going to have to fire at least one of your co-founders. I hate to tell you this, but that's just the reality of being a startup CEO. I've built several businesses to over $100 million per year in revenue, and I've helped many startup CEOs successfully build their businesses too. In today's video, I'm going to show you the 3-step process to follow when you have to fire your co-founder. And you'll want to stick around to the end of today's video when I show you the 3rd and most important step of the process. If you're not already a subscriber, then hit that subscribe button right now, and you'll get notified every time I release a new video. In my work advising startup CEOs, many times we deal with co-founder issues. Sometimes the issues are salvageable, but many times, unfortunately, they're not. As I said, at least 50% of the time, in my experience, maybe it's even 60% of the time, the co-founder has to leave the company. And I'm going to walk you through that 3-step process starting right now. Let's say for whatever the reasons are that you've hit your breaking point and you know you can't salvage the relationship with your co-founder. Maybe you guys are just fighting all the time. Maybe your vision and your co-founder's vision for where the company goes just doesn't match. Or maybe it's just as simple as your co-founder just isn't working very hard. But I'm going to show you that 3-step process, starting with the first step in our process, which is the pre-steps of what you have to do to prepare to fire somebody. So let's get started with that first step right now. Now, the first step is calling your board of directors if you have a board of directors. Very important to do this. You should always, if you're firing a co-founder or an executive of the company, you need to let your board know in advance. Now, this is not to get permission. That's not what this is about, is getting permission. No. This is just being smart and giving your board a heads up that, hey, I'm going to fire somebody. Let them ask you questions. Why are you firing them? Have a reason why. You don't need to be defensive. They're going to support you. And they're going to ask you this very important question, which you're going to need to answer. What's your plan? Now, it doesn't mean you have to hire somebody new. It does mean you have to have a plan for replacing this person. Maybe you're going to distribute the work. Maybe indeed you are going to hire somebody else. Whatever your plan is, tell your board what your plan is at this point. Now, the next step in the process is you want to consult your lawyer. Now, why are we consulting our lawyer as part of our pre-step here? Because you want to understand if there are any contractual issues between you and your co-founder. For example, maybe your co-founder's stock will accelerate if you terminate your co-founder. So maybe you want to have him or her resign. Typically, most firings are resignations. So you want to work with your lawyer, understand contractually what you're obligated to and what you're not obligated to, and then figure out what the right strategy is here before you terminate your co-founder. This can make a huge difference, so you want to go through this step. This was very important to me when I went through this because it saved us a lot of equity when we did it this way. Now, the next pre-step is to have all the paperwork that you want your co-founder to sign when you fire your co-founder. Now, maybe your co-founder isn't going to sign anything right then and right there. Give your co-founder the paperwork. Give them a time period, maybe it's 24 hours, maybe it's 48 hours, to go ahead and sign this information. If they don't, it's fine. Now you're going to have them, if there's a resignation agreement or whatever the agreement is, they're going to have to agree to this. But there's other things that they likely signed when they joined the company, because everybody typically, especially here in the United States, has to sign various forms before they join the company. Typically, there are forms that you sign saying all inventions are the property of the company. You agree to certain rules that the company has, and you want them to sign these things again when they leave. Now, if they don't sign, if they refuse, it's cool. It's not the end of the world, but it's always better to tighten things up on the end as well. So make sure that they do this. Make sure you have the paperwork ready. Okay, our next pre-step is have that final paycheck ready. Now, again, why do we want to do this? Because you want to cut ties. It's so much better if you have everything ready to go, everything ready so that this person can leave and walk away right then, right there, and they don't have to come back. You don't have to send them anything. So much better, so much easier. Have that final paycheck ready. Then our final pre-step is have a witness ready. Now, why do I like having a witness ready? Now, this is typically going to be your HR person, maybe your controller. For me, it was Tina, my very able controller. Tina would sit in these meetings that I would have if I was going to go terminate somebody, and she'd witness the termination. Now, I like doing this because it eases the tension in the room. If there's somebody there, everybody's going to be on better behavior, including you, also your co-founder too. So it's always a little bit better. So I had Tina there to witness the terminations, and therefore it was always better. And especially if it's your HR person, always a little bit easier to do it this way. So I like doing it this way. Again, not necessary, but it's a little bit better to do it this way. So try it. Now, if you like today's content, then hit that like button right now. Okay, now we're on to the actual firing. In some ways, this is kind of the hardest part because this is where the rubber hits the road, right? But there's one more kind of pre-step that you need to do here, and that is, and I wanted to put it here rather than in the pre-step, but this step is you want to do the firing at a time when it's going to be the least embarrassing to your co-founder. Look, things haven't worked out. And you know what? You're responsible for things not working out. You're half of the equation between you and your co-founder. So for whatever the reasons are, it didn't work out. But allow your co-founder to leave the company with their dignity intact. I had to, and this is somewhat similar to this. I'm going to tell you a quick story here. So when we were raising money, there was one very well-known venture fund on Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley that was just about to give us a term sheet and passed at the last minute. And they wanted to meet with me. They asked me, actually, would you want to debrief with us and we'll tell you why we didn't invest. And I said yes, because you never know what you're going to hear, and I wanted to keep the relationship. And they did it in a way which was, they were really unbelievably horrific with me. I'll leave it at that. And I had to walk through the whole office to get to the conference room where I was meeting with them. And when I left, I had to walk out through that same area, through that whole office area, and I felt like I was being paraded around. And it really, nobody knew, obviously, but to me, the feeling was pretty bad. You know, they just dumped all over me. And the last thing in the world I wanted was to have to walk through a group of people feeling humiliated. So you want to reduce the humiliation because most people have never been fired before in their life. It's not fun. I've been fired twice in my life. It sucks. And it's not fun when it happens. You feel really bad, and there's nothing the other side can do to make you feel better. But you at least want to try your best because this person was integral to the company. This person helped you get the company started. So you owe this person at least something. And do it in a way where they're the least embarrassed as possible. What we did when I fired one of my co-founders was we had an all-hands company meeting scheduled for the exact time when I was going to fire him. And therefore, everybody was in the meeting room. Everybody was in the conference room. We're pretty small at this point in time. We're maybe 20 people, I think, somewhere around there. Everybody was in the conference room, and I could fire him with Tina right there, and he could walk out, get his stuff, and leave before everybody noticed what was going on. It gave him some dignity on the way out the door. So Try something like that. Okay, now we're into the firing itself. Don't dawdle around here. Get right to firing the person. They're there, they're in front of you. Just do it. I know it's hard, I know it's difficult, but you've just got to go do it. Now this leads to my next point. Well, what do you say? So what I like saying is just being direct, as I said, and to the point, and just saying, look, it's not working out. We're going to terminate our relationship with you right now. And then to the next point here. It's always okay to say, I'm sorry. Now, some people will tell you should never say you're sorry, and I think that's crap. I think, quite frankly, if you're sorry it didn't work out, then say, look, I'm sorry it didn't work out. It's okay to be honest. It's okay to say, I'm sorry. It's okay to say, look, it didn't work out. I'm really sorry it didn't work out. But just get right to it, get right to the point. Say, I'm sorry. Then we go to the next point in this. If they have any questions, it's okay to answer the questions, and it's also okay not to answer the questions. It's totally up to you. You're not obligated to say anything. If you don't want to say something, then don't say anything. It's totally up to you. But if you want to give some detail, some information of why, now hopefully it's not a surprise. They should know if you guys are fighting, if it's not working out, if your visions aren't matching, or if they're not working hard. Those are typically the three things that I typically see for reasons why somebody gets fired, especially for a co-founder. Just say, look, we're fighting all the time and we can't seem to resolve anything. And that's why I decided to take this step. Then one more point here, which is really important. Don't, if the person says, look, I'm going to change, I promise you, I'm going to fix my issues, whatever it is that they say to you, you have to be resolute. You can't give them hope at this point in time. You have to say, look, I totally get it, but I'm sorry. My decision is final. There can't be any hope for the person of coming back. You've made the decision. You're done with it. Move on with it. Okay, now comes the real hard part of all of this, because you're not done yet once you fire your co-founder. Now comes the hard work. And there's a lot of communication you have to do afterwards. And that's what this most important section is about, is that post-firing period. So let's walk through what you do here and how you handle it. The first step is, now I like to do a bunch of meetings really quickly, is talk to your direct reports. All the other executives, all the other co-founders, bring them in a conference room and say, look, in my case, my co-founder, I'm going to call him Randy. Randy's no longer with the company. We appreciate everything he did, but he's no longer with the company. Now, why do I like doing it like this? Now, obviously, I could say, hey, I just fired Randy, but I don't see a need or a necessity to do that. And I like saying he's no longer with the company because it's true he's no longer with the company. And maybe you didn't fire him. Maybe you agreed to resign, or maybe you're still going over whether or not he's going to resign or whether he's been fired. And those are important things. So I prefer not using the words I'm fired. Now, some people will argue with me about this and say you should say you fired him. I don't like doing that. Personally, I like just saying he's no longer with the company or she's no longer with the company. We appreciate everything she or he did, and we wish them well in the future. So that's your message. And then you want to talk about what comes next. This is how we're going to replace Randy. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And then here's the message you should tell your team when you talk to your team. I want you to say the same thing. I want you to say Randy's no longer with the company. We appreciate everything he did. And the plan for replacing him is this. And then you can answer any of their questions that they have. I don't like saying fired though. So, but again, you want to coach your team on how you want them to handle it. If you want to say you fired him, fine. But I don't think you need to do that. So again, you want to coach your team. You want to talk to your team as well, your direct team, but they're going to have reports as well. So you want to make sure all of this is very clear. Now, the next step is you want to talk to the whole company, especially if it's small. If it's in a small group, 10, 20, 30, 40 people, somewhere around there, talk to the whole company. Give them the exact same message. Tell them Randy's no longer with the company. We appreciate everything Randy did and we wish him well. They'll get the message. They'll understand he's been fired because it's very abrupt, right? But again, you want to answer their questions. You want to tell them this is how we're going to replace them. This is what we're going to do going forward. If there are reporting structures that have changed, be very clear with people. Make sure they understand what's going on. Also make sure to reassure them nothing's wrong with the company. Everything's good. Just somebody left the company. People leave companies all the time. It's okay. So you just want to be clear, but you want to talk to the team as well. Okay, then the final piece here. Talk to your co-founders team as well. In Randy's case, he had, at this point in time, I think he had about 4 direct reports when I fired him. So I talked to each of those people. I let them know Randy's no longer with the company. And I did it as a group first. I told the group, Randy's no longer with the company. You guys are going to report to me for now. And, we wish Randy well. That was it. And then we talked about the reporting structures. We talked about what they were doing, how we would meet, etc. Then I went one further step. I talked to everybody individually on his team too. And I recommend you do the same thing. And I talked to them. I talked to them about how they felt, because these people were recruited by him. So I wanted them to understand I didn't hold it against them. I wasn't mad at them. It was just an issue between Randy and myself. That was what I said. And we just went on. We worked together. And 2 of these people, interestingly enough, Shobha and Dave, I never replaced Randy, interestingly enough, if you're wondering. But 2 of his key lieutenants, Shobha and Dave, ended up being key people in the company. And they ended up taking on the role. And what was interesting to me, after I got rid of Randy, I figured out that guess what? They were doing all the work, not Randy. It's always interesting how these things come out. One final thing I'll tell you. Usually when you have a co-founder that's disruptive and problematic, which was kind of the problem I had with Randy, it was causing all sorts of problems in the company, is people will say this to you. If you're worried about, well, are people going to be worried because I'm firing my co-founder? It never works that way. You know what people say usually? What took you so long? Why did it take you so long to recognize that Randy needed to go? And I don't know whether people said that to me, but they said stuff that was similar. It's so much better now that Randy's out of here. Boy, it's so much calmer. There's not this black cloud over the company. And that's how I felt, by the way, once I got rid of Randy. My God. Once I got rid of Randy, I felt so much better. There was no black cloud over the company. I could come into the office. I was happier. The team was happier, just as importantly. And we really started to move quickly once that happened. So that's what can happen when you take action and when you fire your co-founder. Now, I'm never happy to fire anybody. It sucks. And it's your responsibility, as I said, when you fire somebody. Yet, the results were very positive for the company when you do this. But you should take it really seriously because you're screwing around with somebody's life. And in many cases, this is going to be the first time they've ever truly failed in their life, right? Because now they've been fired. That's a tough thing. And I'll tell you, because as I said, I've been fired twice in my life, and it sucks. So what did you learn from today's video? Put your comments in the comment column below today's video. And if you have any questions for me, put them there as well, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Now, I have one final thing for you today. I have a free startup CEO checklist that's yours for free. All you have to do is click the link below today's video, and it's yours. It has wonderful information for you if you're just starting your company on what to do and where to go. So it's yours for free. As I said, all you have to do is just click the link below today's video. And all you have to do for more great content from me is just wait till the end of today's video and a couple things are going to pop up. There's going to be a subscribe link that pops up, and there are going to be a couple more videos to pop up with more great content. All you have to do is just click any one of those buttons, and it's there for you right now if you want to keep going with more great stuff from me. I'm Brett at brettjfox.com. Have a great, great day. Thanks a lot. Take care.